Welcome to the Off Leash Podcast with Dr. P. I am your co-host, Molly Van Vranken, and we are so glad that you joined us for today's show. Remember, we're not here to say what you want us to say. We're here to be an advocate for your pet.
We are.
How's it going, Dr. Pete?
I'm good.
Good.
It's been a while since I've been on one of these. So,
I know. We just went down to, I'm sure that you are all hearing the podcast that we did down in Orlando from Global Pet, which were all very interesting. We had some very good ones down there.
Yeah, if you've never been to this thing, it's a huge
conglomerate.
And it takes about 2 days to go through the whole thing.
At least.
And that's if you're just walking it without talking to anybody. And if you stop and talk to somebody, it takes 3 days to get through the whole thing. And there's a lot of good exhibits, and there's a lot of nonsense going on at the same time. I've been to that thing before, and actually somebody will talk to you about something. Do you know about this or this or this? And I'm like, yeah, I know about that. Mm-hmm. I'm going to tell you, and they're incorrect, and I should just walk away, and I don't do that. And I had a guy one day. He was telling me he's making generic fipronil, which was Fipronil, which is Frontline.
Okay.
Yeah, and by that time, we'd figured out it didn't work anymore. And by the way, it doesn't.
Dogs are immune to it, or
fleas
tolerant.
Fleas
are immune to it.
Yeah, the fleas are tolerant to it, so it may kill them when you first put it on, but not for very long. And I think I've told this story before that when I don't see the ads much anymore, but when I saw the ads, I would look at your mother and tell her, hey, they should have a disclaimer on this that there were no fleas injured in the filming of this commercial because it didn't kill them anymore. And so it's like a lot of stuff. I mean, if I had to give you a retrospective of my life in flea control, it's like we have something that works, then it doesn't work. And then we get something else and it works, and then it doesn't work. And then we get something else and it works, and then it doesn't work. Now, when Frontline and Advantage came out, they were really game changers. And in fact, the Frontline lasts for a long time then, sometimes as long as 60, 90 days. But then it got to where it was less and less and less. And then I got to where it was about 25 days, and I got to where it was about 12 hours.
Right.
And then it didn't work. And so we happened to be doing a study for the Elanco people, and that was the positive control was this Frontline, and we couldn't kill fleas. The Elanco product was killing them really well.
And I bet clients were coming back super upset. I just paid for this, and it's not killing my dog's fleas.
And here's how the study went. So if you had fleas, in a lot of respects, you wanted to have what they call positive control, which means you had something you were using that worked, so that everybody got something that worked. And at the time, they thought it worked, and it didn't work. So this is a 90-day study, and so they stayed on for 90 days. And we kept putting the Frontline on, and we were doing some CBCs on, which are complete blood cell counts, and these dogs had horrific eosinophil counts, really, really high. And, like 10, 12,000, which is normally a normal dog eosinophil or cat would be 500, 600, 700.
Right.
It was in the thousands and 10,000s in some cases. So these cats were having a terrific allergic reaction to the saliva that the fleas were leaving when they bit them, because they were allowed to bite, and then they died, after being on the dog for a few days. Well, by that time they'd made a mess of the dog or the cat, whatever one they were on. And when we got done with the study, we sent back, I think, $16,000 worth of Frontline to the Frontline people.
Ooh.
Yeah, and they were gracious, took it back, and wanted to know why we were doing it, because I'm like, well, we're doing a study. I'm not allowed to tell you who we did it for, but I can tell you now we did it for Elanco. And Elanco thought that Frontline worked, otherwise they wouldn't have used it as the positive controls on these cats. So it was really, really kind of a sad, and I had to apologize every time the clients came in, because we comb them that's how you do this. You comb the cats for fleas, and then you count the fleas, and then you count them you're allowed to comb them for 5 minutes, and then you got to count the fleas that you have that are on them, and then you enter a number, and
you can individually count the fleas.
Oh yeah, when you get them out of the flea comb, you get them off, and then they're on the table, and
okay.
Lots of times you put them on a piece of white paper or something and crush them with your fingers so they didn't bounce around. Supposedly should have been dead, and some of them were probably a little slower than they should have been, but that's what we did. And
okay.
Yeah, but anyway, I was at that show in Florida, and I told this guy, I said, listen, this stuff doesn't work anymore. You might want to find another line of work. And he did not.
He was not happy.
No, he wasn't happy. And I told him, I said, I'm just telling you because I know that. I mean, I'm probably the only one in this building today that was involved in a study like this. So I'm so you can look at this as some jackass that came by your booth, but
you are some jackass that comes by a booth.
But and I could have just walked by and just smiled and kept going, but
you had to pick a fight.
I had to pick a fight
in true Pete Van Franken fashion.
So I shouldn't have picked the fight, but I thought I was doing him a favor. But anyway, when you're at a veterinary convention and you tell young veterinarians or younger veterinarians that you did this study and this is what you found, they're like, really? And then they want to know more.
Right.
So that's always a good sign when people want to know more. This guy wanted to know less. So
he's like, I want to live in my make believe.
So if you're going to be in the science of killing fleas, you need to know more, not less.
Right.
So anyway, that's my story about that show. And there were a lot of things that were, you would go by and they'd had scientific articles, and then it'd just be the abstract, which is sort of
just a brief summary,
cliff notes of what this study is going to be. But there was nothing that you could hang your hand on and say
no meat and
there was no meat and potatoes. Yeah.
Yep.
So and he was just and I got a feeling that he might have been doing the right thing by just showing the abstract, because I think he just figured most people weren't
looking that deep
into
and
it. Couldn't. Well, and the article would have been quite a bit deeper.
Those articles are hard to read, though.
They are.
The scientific peer-reviewed articles, I tried to read them. They are way over my head. They are at the doctorate level of reading.
So let me tell you, when I get my AVMA journal, that's what I do. I look at the abstract and I see, is this something would be of concern to me? And then I'll go all the way to the back page and see what the findings were. And if the findings were really shocking or
significant,
yeah, then I go back and read the whole article twice.
Okay.
And you
kind of skip to the end and.
Well, yeah. I mean, I never did that with a Nancy Drew book or anything, but where you try to figure out who did it, but you anticipated the ending. This is one of those things sometimes. If I open the AVMA journal and they got 10 articles in there, about 3 of them are something I might be interested in. The other 7 are something that has nothing to do with what I do for a living. So
that's fair.
Yep,
that's fair. So for today's episode, we have a very interesting type of way that we're going to do this. We actually sent out an email to all of our Voyager dog food customers, or I shouldn't say customers, people on our email list, asking them for questions that they wanted to ask Dr. Pete. Because normally we do a segment on Tuesday and it's Ask Dr. Pete when he's in the office on our Instagram page. And people, they get their answers, but they don't get the long version
they
answer.
get 1 minute.
They get the Cliff Note answer.
Yeah, they get the Cliff Note, and it's like, I need more. So you're going to get more today, because we'll answer questions in a more...
If anybody knows Dr. Pete, he likes to talk. He likes to give long-winded answers.
Well,
cover all the bases.
I think, just we're having this podcast today, and some of these people are going to know a lot about what I'm talking about. Some of these people know something about what I'm talking about. Some of them have no idea what I'm talking about. So you have to explain it to the breadth of your audience.
Yeah. And I feel like by doing the Instagram story rebuttals to the questions, you kept wanting to go longer, and you're like, well, I didn't get to tell him this or that or that. And instead of doing just multiple parts, I was like, well, let's just switch it over to the podcast.
Well, would you feel bad if you went into your doctor and he said, I got 60 seconds to tell you what we found on your lab work? Yeah. And it's like, whoop, time's up.
So these are more in-depth questions. And we might even break this into a part 2 for Dr. Pete. But I'm going to be reading the questions and you're going to be answering them. We'll keep it kind of privacy for people's names. I'm just going to say their first name and the last letter. This question comes from Kelly A. I've asked this before, but I'm not sure it got answered. What's the best care for my dog's teeth? An additive good for water, daily brushing, professional cleaning. She's a Great Dane, and I have only found vets who work on smaller dogs' teeth. Thanks, Dr. Pete.
So I think the vets that work on smaller dogs' teeth are working on smaller dogs' teeth because they have a lot more problems.
Smaller dogs do.
Yeah, I would not be surprised if you had a Great Dane and they had chew toys that were good at taking the tartar off. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, we had our dog Sammy. Remember we had Sammy? Yeah. I never spent more than 25 cents on his teeth. He never needed to have anything done. He didn't break anything.
Larger dogs don't need as much dental.
No, they don't need as much dental care. And really, anytime we're looking at, hey, I want to clean your dog's teeth, this is always risk and reward stuff. Well, there's a little bit of risk, but there's an awful lot of reward. But sometimes if there's just a little bit of risk and a little bit of reward, sometimes I opt out to do something different for that dog. And I think sometimes that's the way it is with those guys. A lot of the time, this will all be dealt with on, how is your dog's breath? Is your dog's breath bad, or is it not too bad, or good, or whatever? If there's no discernible tartar and their breath is good, I don't do a lot.
Right.
So I think I have what I term as TLN. You know what TLN is?
No.
Tender loving neglect. And so that's what I do for. I think this is a TNL thing. And you can brush them, and certainly that's one of the things that probably be the easiest. And this is a really nice dog. They have these toothbrushes, and they have toothpaste for dogs, and that's what I use. I brush them. I think that's absolutely the best way to do it. There are lots of other options, and even when people say, "Well, we got this dental treat," well, there are some dental treats that really have been proven to fix things or help things along, and there's other dental treats that are just, I hope to hell this does something, because there's no scientific evidence to say that it makes any difference. Yeah. And you'll find some of the pharmaceutical companies that have dental treats will have done work, where they did work, and they created, they ran a double-blind study to see
exactly
what was going on there. So I think that's the way. I'm not sure. What's her name? Kelly. I'm not sure what I would do here. If I had a picture of your dog's teeth, if there was tartar on there, I'd probably get it cleaned, get the teeth cleaned, and then I get a toothbrush and never clean them again, probably, if you're using the toothbrush appropriately. However, if we got Kellier's dog out and then saw slab fractures of one of the molars and things like that, then it's a different story. So maybe at least a one-time thing, you do a dental and then make sure you don't have any slab fractures or anything that's wrong. And if you don't have anything that's wrong, lots of times you don't need to do anything. That's the big conversation we have sometimes at the clinic is that, these deer antlers and stuff. I kind of like the deer antler deals, but then our technician who does the dentals, and she'll say, well, you can break some teeth doing that. Well, you can. It's kind of a slippery slope there. Yeah, you're gonna do stuff. I'm just like popcorn. I'm just older now, so I'm pretty careful about the way I eat it. And
that's fair.
When I get down to the last 10%, I pitch it. So I want the damn kernels. Yep.
That's a good answer. All right, this next question actually comes from someone that I know, Sean G. I actually sat next to him on a plane recently, and I was flying out somewhere, and he goes, Molly? And I turned around, what are the chances of that? He said, my Labrador has what I call Labrador ears. They are always dirty, constantly having to clean them. But it wasn't always this way. Maybe it comes with more age. My question is, can I give her an over-the-counter oral like Benadryl in conjunction with Momentum
X.
Memenazole?
Yeah,
Memenazole? I've never even heard of that.
Yeah, it's an ear treatment, and it usually has an antifungal and an antibacterial and an anti-inflammatory. So it has 3 different things in there.
To help, if he wants to know if they can help dry the ears, how do you pronounce it? Metamizole?
Momentum X or Memenazole, yeah.
Memenazole is supposed to only be used for 7 days, but its efficiency is not that good. I can just stop or her ears.
Efficacy.
Yeah, but her ears are much better in between the metamizole used with, oh my goodness, all these long words.
Do you want me to read this for you?
Apicillin? I'm not a doctor. I don't know these.
Oh, it says, Epiclean. Epiclean. I think that's probably an ear cleaner.
Yeah.
So everybody names their stuff now.
It's all complicated.
You name your dog, you name your cat, you name your ear cleaner. So they have,
I thought it was pronounced Epiclean.
Epiclean. So here's what we need. Let's start at the very beginning. It's a Labrador Retriever, okay? And this dog's having ear problems. Okay, this is almost certainly
a food allergy?
with a 95% degree of certainty that this is a food allergy. And it's probably not to his food, because I think is he feeding our food?
Yeah.
Okay. It's probably to the treats. And I just got done doing a presentation for
table scraps.
A bunch of veterinarians. That's right. So 15% of the time it's actually the food. So when somebody comes in with bad ears, do I change the food right away? Nope. I ask, what's in your food? And they're like, I don't know. And so, and that's kind of a warning sign right there. I'm feeding something, I don't know what's in my dog's food, but he's having ear problems. So I need to know. So at least online now, we can pull those ingredients up. So I'll look at them, see what's in there. There's a couple warning signs. every once in a while it'll say whey protein, which is milk protein. So I'm a big BMW guy. No beef, no milk, no wheat. No beef, no milk, no wheat. And then I get it all done with these people, and I'm.
But then people are like, I give cheese.
Yeah.
Oh, that's dairy.
Yeah.
Milk.
What is it? I always say to them, what's your favorite German car? After I get done talking to them.
BMW.
Yeah, well, yeah, they don't tell me that. They tell me another German car. And, they'll tell you, well, Volkswagen, I like Volkswagen. Well, that's not where we're going here. BMW, no beef, no milk, no wheat. So, and then,
it's a good way to remember it.
Well, it is a good way to remember it. And actually, I started doing that, and I thought, this is kind of corny. No, it's not corny at all, because quite frankly, the clients will come in 2 years later and say, I don't know, BMW, no beef, no milk, no wheat. And they remember the no beef, no milk, no wheat, because if you tell them no beef, no milk, no wheat, they don't put that together. And then I tell them the ABCs. And that's the beauty of this thing, because you get rid of all the treats, and I mean everything.
All of them.
Yeah, and when I do that, and especially if there's
table scraps.
And table scraps, yep. And then there's people in the room, well, what about this or what about that? Because I write it down. That's the secret. That's what you have to do. Write it down. And I do ABCs, apples, bananas, and carrots. So I do it like a triangle. This is the left side of the triangle. And on the bottom, it's carrots, cucumbers, and cubes of ice, or ice cubes. And then going up the other side, it's ice cubes, beans of green, and apples. So the apples, so apples, bananas, carrots, cucumbers, ice cubes, and beans of green. And I usually always use the canned beans. You can use the frozen ones if you want. I don't care. I just know dogs like sometimes things are a little on the salty side. And please don't get the salt-free green beans, because
dogs don't like them.
Yeah, your mother used to buy me salt-free V8 juice. I drank some. I'm like, you couldn't put enough vodka in this to make it good, or Worcestershire sauce. This is terrible, Sharon. What'd you buy that for me for?
Trying to make you healthy.
Trying to make you healthy.
Trying to lower your sodium levels.
And then we have a fight, and she wonders why she's trying to keep me healthy. But I get the whole thing. I don't know why I'm trying to keep you around. This is a
stupid idea.
Stupid project of mine. Anyway, yeah, it probably is. But nonetheless, and then the first part of these are 9 letters. HOH, which is if you're a nurse.
Water.
Yeah. If you're a nurse, it stands for hard of hearing. So, but it's H2O. So H2O. HOH, H2O, ABC, apples, bananas, and carrots, and the BMW, no beef, no milk, no wheat. That probably is what's going to solve the problem for these ears. So what he's doing, he's continuing to feed something that's making the ears unhappy. Okay. Okay. And
I'd be curious to know what it is.
Well, he's feeding something. I just had this conversation with somebody yesterday, and I go, what about this? What about this? What about that? What about that? And they're like, no. So we go back and start taking care of the dog, and I come back up. You know what? And the minute I walk in the room, you know what?
I did give my dog.
Yeah. You know what? I forgot about this. We have pizza on Friday nights, and we usually give him a whole piece of pizza, and it's the kind of one where there's cheese in the crust, okay? What kind of pizza? Pepperoni, okay. So we got wheat that's in the pizza. Flour,
in the crust.
And we got cheese,
dairy,
which is made out of milk. And then we got pepperoni, which is not pepperoni. It's pepperoni, which is beef. And so I don't know which of the three are
causing it.
Guilty, yeah, but just get rid of all of it. Well, he's not going to like that. Well, I'll tell you what, if he doesn't like it, it's too bad that he doesn't like it. And then I always have this thing I tell him, I said, this works. You don't follow the instructions. Then you got to come in again, and we'll do this. And then I'll be just giving your money to my wife. And I said, she's not spending it on good stuff anymore. Now she's spending it on
cleaning the silo.
Yeah, I know.
Getting the silo power washed.
Which is incredibly, in my opinion, it's a cement silo. It's
she wants a clean silo.
Yeah. Well, what do they call that? What do they call that in an antique roadshow? Patina.
A patina.
Some bitch has patina.
Some bitch.
Some bitch in silo has patina. So we have a silo that has patina.
Okay.
But now we don't because it's been washed.
Because someone keeps bringing their dog in with ear infections.
Yeah, because somebody keeps. That's right. So So that's right.
So stop bringing your dogs in so we don't have to get our silo spray painted.
Well, that's what I tell myself. I'm just taking your money home to my wife. She spent it on frivolous crap. So why don't you just follow the instructions and you fix your dog's ear? And then and this will be like, I hate to tell you this. This is probably insensitive to say this. But it's like alcoholism.
You insensitive? Oh no.
Alcoholism. You go to rehab, and then you fall off the wagon, and you got to go to rehab again. So don't go to rehab twice. Let's just get this right the first time. And then the dog ain't gonna stand around and bitch about not getting any more cheese balls or anything. I mean, they'll eat green beans. They're fine with it. Mm-hmm. They get it. It's like scotch. I imagine you develop a taste for some of this stuff. And the nice thing about all these things is, and you probably haven't thought about this before, but it's the texture. So there's different texture. The carrots have different texture than the banana. Banana has different texture than the apple, and the green beans and the ice cube. So what you have, things are different texture. And by the way, if the dog does not like the carrots, you can cook them. And a lot of dogs like carrots once they're cooked, and then you can actually transition them back to.
But let's go back to the original question. Can he give an over-the-counter oral like Benadryl in conjunction with?
So this is a type 4 allergic reaction, not one that involves histamine. This is one that involves cytokines. So cytokines is inflammatory protein that's released from white cells, and what happens there is it's like the poison ivy thing, where you're getting poison ivy on Sunday and you break out on Tuesday. Mm-hmm. And this is the same way, except it's not on your skin. It is.
So the Benadryl is not going to do anything.
No, Benadryl doesn't do anything for poison ivy. Nobody goes in and says, yeah, I got into poison ivy. My mother took me for a Benadryl injection. And, she's not going to be mother of the year for doing that, because this is a cytokine thing.
Okay.
This requires usually steroids.
Okay.
Usually it requires steroids
to stop
the
steroids. What about the other medication that he was getting to help dry?
Yeah, so what you're doing is
metamazole.
What he's doing.
Metamazole.
Yeah, mometazole.
Mometazole.
Okay. Peter Piper picked a peck.
Yeah, I didn't go to vet school, okay?
I know you didn't. So, and it's a good thing you didn't go. It's hard on you. Anyway, I would tell you that really what they're doing is it's like having a block of cheese and just scraping the mold off it with the mometazole.
It's going to keep growing back.
Yeah,
the mold.
when you quit scraping the cheese off. So you got one of two things you can do: scrape the cheese off and wait for it to grow back, or the minute you get it scraped off, immediately eat the cheese, and that's the end of the problem right there. So that's what you're faced with. I'd eat the cheese, bud, if I were you, and get rid of that, because what you're doing is you're just scraping and this happens all the time. I'm in here for the 4th time. I'm in here for the 7th time, and I still have ear infection. So you sit them down. Has anybody talked to you about food allergies? And they're like, well, a little bit. Well, tell me how much a little bit was. And then we talk about it. I'm like, well, I draw them this. I write everything down. I have a little thing I call it treasure map, your treasure map.
Yeah, I've seen it. We actually have it on YouTube. If you would like to go see Dr. Pete's your treasure map, you can go check that out.
Anyway, we got the ear treasure map, and I show them how to do it, and then they go fix it. You know what the beauty of it is? I see those people back in there. They're coming back for a vaccine like 4 months later, and they're out there and this happens all the time. They're out there in the waiting room explaining to other clients sitting in the waiting room with them with dogs with ear infections. Here's what he's going to tell you, and here's how we fixed ours.
Here's how you don't get them to yell at you.
No, it's kind of fun, because I go in there, instead of having a 20-minute appointment, I have a 12-minute appointment, because the other guy did, or the
half
other
the work.
Yeah, did all the work. And all I did was just
validate.
That's exactly the right word. I validated our client out there in the waiting room. And so the client figured the whole damn thing out, but they had to figure it out. They had to have help. So this is like me teaching you how to play pinochle or euchre or something like that. You can be a hell of a euchre player, a hell of a pinochle player, better than I am. But somebody has to teach you the game. Mm-hmm. Yep.
So if you were to give the advice to Sean, no beef, milk, or wheat, ABC treats, don't waste your time with the Benadryl. You can keep giving the
Mometazole.
Mm-hmm. What about the Epiclean?
Well, I would take a bulb syringe. A lot of times with these dirty ears, I'll take a bulb syringe and warm water. How do you get bacon grease out of the bottom of a pan? Use warm water. Yeah, and you can use the Epiclean too, because that'll probably kill the yeast in there. When we did ear studies, we had to use I don't know that the FDA, I think this is blasphemy, but we had to clean ears out with saline because there's nothing in saline to kill bacteria use. So when you're doing the study, they don't want you to be killing anything with the ear cleaner. So we were trying to clean ears with saline, and it couldn't get it done very well. So we put it in the incubator and got it up to about 105 degrees, or I don't know what the temperature was. We got it warm, nice and warm, and then we put it in there, and the wax just came out because it was like bacon grease. Yeah, that's right. Yep. So we did that, and we never told the sponsor because they didn't tell you what temperature the saline was supposed to be when you put it in there. So we just, since it wasn't a deviation from the protocol because we did it the way that we use saline. We just used warm saline, but we didn't tell them it was warm saline.
Fair enough.
Yep. I'm a cheater. I don't know if you knew that.
You mark the cards.
Yeah, I like to mark cards so I win.
You ready for the next question?
Sure. Thanks,
Sean, for your question. Now we're moving on to Donna B. Does my 4-year-old lab need a joint supplement?
It's not a bad idea. I mean, you might have some ideas to whether your dog's having any muscular. Well, we'll talk about that. Whether you're having any musculoskeletal things. There's a number of things around, and really every year somebody comes out with a different take on it. They have these things like these Omega XLs. You've seen those advertised on TV probably with John Walsh. Have you seen that?
Mm-mm.
Okay, it's made out of green lip muscle.
Oh, I've seen that. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, green lip muscle. That's a good one to use. Cosequin's fine.
Cosequin or Cosequin?
Cosequin.
Whatever. Potato.
Yeah, and they're pretty good about. They're really good about monitoring their stuff and making sure everything's in there. There's one called U-Move. There's one called Moviflex. There's one called Tricox. I would feel fine about using that sort of stuff. I don't know if you need to use it on a skinny dog that's a little bit older, but a lab a little bigger. They tend to have a tendency to get arthritis. We get dogs in the clinic all the time to be euthanized because of old age concerns. And some of those dogs just can't get up anymore. And,
right.
And a lot of them are ex-fat dogs. And they've developed enough arthritis. And I would tell you this, if you had a lab and it was overweight, I certainly would give them a joint. I'd get the weight off. And I'd take a year to get the weight off, but I'd certainly have them on some sort of joint supplement. It's a great place to start. It's not where you're going to end, but it's a great place to start. And I would use any of these, glucosamine, chondroitin.
Practicing proactive medicine rather than reactive medicine.
Yeah. Omega-3s, the boswellia plant, that's with some eggshell liners. There's all sorts of stuff. You know what? You just find what works for your dog. So, I think that's one of those things where, you can try all sorts of different ones and see where you think the thing you have to be careful of. And I'm sitting here in Michigan, it's 40 degrees out today, so it's rainy. So this is arthritis weather. That's the kind of thing you have. So if you were using this and you had a dog with arthritis and you were using one of these joint supplements, your dog was still a little stiff. But then 3 months later got a lot better. Well, it's 95 degrees out and dry as a bone.
Right.
Yeah. So you say, whatever I'm using today is really working. I'll tell you what's working today, the weather for you.
Yep. That's
what's working today. So it's complicated.
It's a lot of external.
This could be a 2-hour answer, but it is not going to be a 2-hour answer. It sure as hell going to be on Instagram. So,
you ready for the next question?
Sure.
This next question comes from B. Jean L. I love everything about Voyager dog food, except I'm concerned about the denaturing that happens at high heat. Can you please speak to this? And in the future, will Voyager be developing a dog food with the same ingredients but processing it in a more gently way, like light cooking and keeping it wet or freeze drying it, for example? Thank you.
Well, I would say what we're doing now is light cooking, and that's what we're doing now. We're not really... and I think you talked to Ben about this, didn't you, a little bit or not?
About what?
About cooking stuff.
And, yeah. He said that our food is cooked. He knows the whole process of it because he actually visited the manufacturing facility.
He's gone to a number of them before.
Yeah. And I know that it's a lot different than like the technical high heat. It's cooked a little bit differently. I don't know how exactly.
Well, you're just doing a slow. You're doing it slow, so you're not destroying any of the nutrient values to it. Yeah. So listen, if we were cooking the snot out of it, you could tell because a lot of the ingredients that are benefiting your dog would not be evident.
Right.
You know.
We We did speak to one of our dog food manufacturers down in Orlando, and we did talk about the idea of releasing a freeze-dried food eventually down the line, which we thought was a great option for people, even if they wanted to use it as a topper. And we've actually been doing some research. A lot of freeze-dried dog foods on the market are super high in copper. Isn't that right?
They are.
He calls them the cigarettes of dog food.
Yeah, you must. That's what I told her. As I told you, I said, gee whiz, this company ought to teach dogs how to smoke. That's where they're coming.
Because they have super high copper
concentrations. Well, I don't think they know any different.
But it's because it's liver. It's a lot of liver stuff.
Yeah, so it was beef and beef liver and beef heart and beef kidney and beef tripe, which is, by the way, the intestinal tract. So we call them, said, well, how much copper do you have in your food? And they said 12.5. So they didn't say 12 or 13. They said 12.5. Like they knew what they were doing.
Very specific.
And it was 55.8.
And we tested it, right?
We sent it and tested it because a lot of this stuff's made by liars, and apparently this was made by a liar. I'm not going to tell you what the name of the company is, but it was made by a liar. So you can't just tell people stuff like that. And listen, if you call your dog food manufacturers and say, how much copper's in your food, just because they tell you something, could just be complete, utter BS. And I think we know what that stands for, don't we?
Bullshit.
Oh, that's right. We just went over BMW. Now we're going to go over BS. We could go over a lot of letters like that, but we're not going to do that today. You know what we do in our business when somebody brings a dog at ADR? It says on the card ADR.
What's ADR?
Ain't doing right.
Ain't doing right.
Ain't doing right.
Well, these dog food companies ain't doing right. Yep. If they're adding
not doing right by and this is not casting a blanket over all of them, but this company,
a lot of them.
This company, and I got a feeling whoever was on the phone was coached to say this, or and they may have actually when we
they might not have known any better.
And I'll bet the conversation went like at their place. Well, if any of these crazy bastards call and ask how much copper is, tell them 12.5. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's a good number.
And nobody's going to send it in. I mean, we did, but...
No, we did. We sent 2 of them in. They were
how much is it to get it tested?
I can't remember how much it was, but...
Like $100 or something?
Yeah, something like that. So we sent them both in to find out how much it was.
Okay. So
we'll probably make something at some point in time, because you know what? We thought about this a little bit. We're going to probably bring a puppy food out sometime.
That's going to be hard.
And we're going to probably bring out another hydrolyzed diet at some time. But here's what we're going to do. We're going to try to be, whatever we're going to do, is we're going to have treats, low copper treats. If we're going to have freeze-dried food, it's going to be low copper freeze-dried food.
No copper added?
And no copper added. That's right. And if we're going to make kibble, it's going to be no copper added. Everything's going to be no copper added.
Non-copper fortified.
Yep.
All right. So as far as the high heat goes, it's not done at super high heat?
No, it's not done at super high heat. And listen, if it was done at that, we would see it in our own dogs, and we don't. And,
okay.
And we've been there and watched them cook it. And so this is like for us, it's like when your kid has a recital, somebody goes and watches it. One of the parents goes and watches it to make sure everything was done right. So we do that. We don't go to every cook-off, but we go to the first couple and just make sure everything's going the way we think it should.
Yeah. And then maybe in the next year or so, look out for a freeze-dried diet that we might be releasing.
Yep.
All right. Next question comes from Jessica B. I recently switched my dog to Voyager chicken formula. My dog has been experiencing elevated it says ALP, but I imagine it's ALT.
No, it is ALP.
Mm-hmm. Alk-Phos?
Alk-Phos, that's
okay.
right.
Elevated ALP for years.
Well, give me the number.
Hold on, I'll give it to you. Which we use Uridile 2 times a day to help manage. Then this past December, she started to experience high ALT and ASP. We are at a loss. I have cut everything that contains beef and that has the copper added and added denamarin. I am running on the notion that it could be copper storage. The doctor doesn't seem to be convinced. We have completed 2 ultrasounds. Really nothing noted. Probably because you need to do a liver biopsy, I imagine.
Right. That's right.
Tried 2 different antibiotics and prednisone. She still has the elevations, even more. My long-winded question. She is a German short-haired pointer, 8.5, very active. Could copper storage disease appear later in life? She has high anxiety with everything. Could this be induced by that? We have another appointment with a specialist. Next step is a liver biopsy. Good job. We wanted to get these levels to stop rising, hoping for some solutions soon. And I'm going to hand you the sheet of paper because it has all of her numbers.
Okay, and I'll read this to you. So the Alk-Phos is really high. The Alk-Phos is 2,000 and it should be
What's a normal range?
High of 131. So does she say what kind of dog this is? Oh, yeah, she said German Shorthair. I'd be curious what this dog looked like because, quite frankly, this almost looks like a Cushing's dog where you have an adrenal disorder. It's really not an adrenal disorder. It's a pituitary disorder. And the pituitary, which is at the base of your skull, sends a message to the adrenals to make more steroids, what's called ACTH, adrenocortical stimulating hormone. So then the adrenals make more steroids, and that's what makes your alk phos go up. Oh. So there's two kinds of steroids, the kind you buy from a veterinarian and the kind the dog makes on his own or her own. This dog does have an high ALT, and I want to say it's in the 370s. So certainly this could be that. And you could have a dog that has a high, that is Cushing's, that actually has copper storage at the same time.
Do you see that often?
Not really very often, but it's a comorbidity. And so when the liver gets that unhappy, I will tell you that ALT is very specific for liver, very specific. Alk phos, not so much specific. So you can see that in bone inflammation, muscle inflammation. You can see it in various forms in different conditions. So you got to be pretty careful that you're not shoveling this onto the liver because this isn't always a liver thing. The OT was high. I'm not too concerned about that. The total bilirubin was a little bit high, 0.4. And bilirubin is what happens when a red cell dies. It gets conjugated in the liver and goes through the bile duct and comes out. And that's what kind of gives feces a brown
tint to it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I might be interested in what this dog stool looks like. Please don't send me any, but you can take a picture and send it. Yeah, we're getting ready to put our garden in. Anyway, why don't you go ahead and take a look at the stool and see if that looks brown or if it looks kind of pasty tan or something. So I would do that. I would probably look at that. There's a number of things here. Actually, everything else is pretty normal. I didn't see much else going on here. You had a SDMA, which was actually kind of low. Anyway, all your other stuff looked really good. This could be that I have had a German Short. In fact, I've had 2 German Short hairs that had copper storage. This definitely could be one of those dogs. I don't know. But I would tell you this much. I think you got to do an ultrasound. I'd have somebody do an ultrasound of this.
I thought they said that they did an ultrasound.
Did they do a ultrasound? Oh, yeah, 2 ultrasounds. Nothing noted. Okay. So there's no tumors. So we know there's no tumors in there. So that's good. Probably no tumors.
And you think that they should go forward with the liver biopsy?
I think that's probably where you figure this all out.
Right.
I do.
And they're going to the specialist. I'm curious where the specialist is.
Yeah, and they could actually even do a screening for Cushing's. They could do that. I don't know what this dog looks like. Usually Cushing dogs have a really poor hair coat quality, and they're kind of bloated up and kind of frumpy looking.
If it is copper storage disease, how do you think that they should proceed treatment-wise?
Well, I'll tell you what I do. And part of your alk phos and stuff, the fact you're giving prednisolone makes the ALT and the alk phos go up. So if you discontinue the prednisone, if you're still on it, you're honestly under doctor's instructions.
Right.
But if you discontinued that and then 2 weeks later looked at it to see whether it came down or not. But typically what I would do on these dogs, I would just feed them the food for,
6 months.
Yeah, and I guess I don't know whether this dog's lost weight. That kind of plays into it. Did we lose weight? Is our appetite different? Do we look at the problem with copper storage dogs? They look great right up until the time they don't look great. And by the time they don't look great, it's too late.
Right.
And that's what happened with one of our dogs. The other dog we found that had copper storage disease, we just biopsied because we knew that breed was susceptible to it. And your dog did have his 500 parts per million of copper.
Yep, but now she's down because we put her on the food.
Yeah, we put her on the food and it came down.
But she was a lot younger. She's not. This dog's like 8.5, I think it said.
But we get this all the time to where you put them on the food and the copper levels come down. So if you don't put anything in, and they're taking it out. The problem is like, and I've often said this: 10 units in, 5 out, 10 in, 5 out, 10 in, 5 out. You can't do that forever because you're only taking 5 out, so it starts to build.
Right.
So now it's 2 in, 5 out, 2 in, 5 out, 2 in, 5 out. Sounds like my wife's checkbook. But anyway,
too soon.
Yeah.
Too soon.
Ooh, I got an overdraft.
I don't think Sharon listens to this.
No, she should listen. That's why we're boiling her up today.
Stop shitting on your wife, okay?
Okay.
God.
So I have to worry about her with the green oatmeal.
Yeah. Does it put arsenic in it?
Well, no.
I know she just
rat poison.
Rat poison.
Rat poison, yeah. And then tries to convince me it's evergreen or something. No,
well, I don't know why she's trying to keep you alive for so long.
I don't know. Well, I think maybe she's come to the end of her rope on that, so that's why I'm getting the green oatmeal. Anyway.
Oh my God.
Oh boy, my hands bleed easy now. Anyway, that's what I think you do. Usually I tell people you feed the food, and every 45 to 60 days you check ALT. If it's coming down, hey, thank your lucky stars and keep feeding the food. If it didn't come down, then you better figure out what's going on, because some of these are immune mediated. Can be immune mediated with the body's whacking his own liver, her own liver.
Yeah.
And that can be, but we think there's more copper dogs than immune mediated dogs, because what happens is then if you have all this copper in it, in the liver, and the dog's body says, I don't care for this at all. So there's an inflammatory response because all the copper in there. So you get inflamed hepatocytes, and that's where the ALT comes from. Mm-hmm. ALT is an enzyme that's inside the hepatocyte or the liver cell, and then it sneaks out and it's in the bloodstream.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's pretty simple. So this was I know for the audience today, I'm looking at the paper, and but I think that she should probably do the liver biopsy, and then one way or the other. So I always tell people, I said, you got a really high ALT. If you're not going to treat them with depenicillamine or anything, there's 3 things to do: biopsy. Yep, 3 things.
I got it. Well, I think that we're going to break this into a 2-part episode. Okay. Jessica, we wish you the best with your dog.
Yep.
Please follow up with us if you have any other questions, and
tell her. And
well, you're going to tell her. She's listening.
Yeah, she'd listen. That's the way we learn. I mean, if you call me and tell me, well, here's what we did and here's what happened. Here's what we did and here's what happened. I think that's and I see this with clients all the time, because we'll figure out something and they'll say, well, the doctor didn't think that was the way it was, but we fed your food and it got better. Go tell the doctor. Don't do it in a smart ass way. Just go tell the doctor that here's what we did, and then the liver enzymes came down, and then the doctor learns. And so, and this is the way I learn, because people call me back and tell me this is what happened. I get a dog in and I'm like, I hope this works, or I think this will work, and then they call me back and say, well, you were right, it did work, or no, you were wrong, it didn't work.
Right.
So I learn by all my successes and failures, all of them, and it isn't like you ever get over having the failures.
You can't ever be scared of failures. That's how you learn. If you were
knows,
winning all the time, you would never learn.
Everybody knows how to throw a curveball.
That's right.
And sometimes it's hard to hit. But I think that's the thing that people, anybody listening to this, that's your job to explain to the doctor what happened after you did what you did, because that's the way we learn too.
Perfect. Well, we are going to break this into a part 2. Come back for the next set of questions. Until then, thank you guys so much for joining us. We hope that we've been able to share some information with you to help your animals and love them as much as they love you. Don't forget, always treat the treatable, prevent the preventable, and we will catch you on the next one.
And I love this format, where people call in with questions. That's much better for me.
And remember, there's never a stupid question. So if we send out these emails asking for questions for Dr. Pete,
just stupid answers.
Just stupid answers by Dr. Pete. That's right.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.